Of all of the methods for solving quadratic equations, completing the square is probably the least practical. However, it is important to understand as we move toward developing the quadratic formula, so we are going to spend a little bit of time on it. It's based on this idea. We know that x plus 4 squared means x plus 4 times x plus 4. Some of you have learned the shortcut for this, realizing that this is x squared plus, if we do two of these, 4 times x plus 4 times x, 8x plus this number squared plus 16. I could do the long way. First gives me x squared. Outer gives me 4x. Inner also gives me 4x. Last gives me 16. What I find out is, again, it's x squared plus 8x plus 16. So if you look at the relationship between this number, 4, the middle number is twice that, and the third number is that squared. So let's just do this one without the little step in between. Actually, I'm going to do this one with a minus, because this is important to note. This is x squared. 2 5s is 10, and since this is a negative, that's going to be minus 10x plus 25. And just to double check, we can say this is x minus 5 times x minus 5, which is x squared minus 5x minus 5x plus 25. Hence, see, there will always be two of these. That's why the 10 is twice the 5. And then this is 5 squared. So if I want to say x squared plus bx, to make a perfect square trinomial, I'm doing half of b squared, right? This, if I think of this number, half of 10 squared gives me 25. And if I want to write that as the binomial square, that would be x plus b divided by 2. This all plays into, completing the square is based on this. Okay, so x squared plus 14x plus what would make this a perfect square trinomial? Well, half of 14 is 7, and 7 squared is 49. Remember, we're doing if x squared plus bx plus, this is b divided by 2 squared, and what that is would be x plus 7 squared. That's x plus b divided by 2 squared. Okay, let's try another one. Let's say x squared minus 6x plus what? Well, we know that negative 6 is twice what we have in here. And half of 6 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. If I want to express this as the square, you can think of this number either as half of 6 or as the square root of this number. Once you're into solving some basic equations, if, for example, I say that x squared minus 6x is equal to negative 8. At first glance, you might say, well, that's not helpful. However, if I complete this square, that's why I'm called completing the square, what can I add to this that would make it a perfect square trinomial? That number is 9, because half of 6 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other. And the reason why that's helpful is that I can then express this as a perfect square and move on to rooting both sides. the reason why this is helpful is that now I can take the square root of both sides, and I have x minus 3 is equal to positive or negative 1, meaning that x is 3 plus 1, or 4, 3 minus 1, or 2. So we can complete the square and then take the square root of both sides. And it's another method of the quadratics. One that is a little bit harder. If I say x squared plus 10x minus 3 is equal to 0. Well, what's hard about this is that this is not a perfect square trinomial. However, if I first get rid of this 3, I have x squared plus 10x equals 3. And from there, I can complete the square. To make this a perfect square trinomial, I add 25. And if I do it to one side, I do it to the other. I now express this as a perfect square. X plus 5 squared is equal to 28. When I go to root both sides, I recognize that 28 is also root 4. Root 28 is root 4 times root 7. And root 4 is 2. So this is 2 root 7. This is x plus 5 equals 2 root 7. To get x alone, I subtract 5. Now you will also be expected to find decimal equivalents of this. So you need to use your calculator to say negative 5 plus 2 times the square root of 7, and negative 5 minus 2 times the square root of 7. There are other ones that can involve way trickier fractions, but I'm going to leave it at this. Most of your homework is simple like this. I guess I could do one more. If I say x squared, this is only one of your homework problems is quite this difficult. Minus 5x is equal to 23. Well, the thing is, this is not an even number. So I need to find out what half of it is, and then I need to square that to find out what to add. So x squared minus 5x plus 25 over 4 is equal to 23 plus 25 over 4. I know that this is going to be x minus 5 over 2 squared, because that's this number that we use here. And 23 plus 25 fourths is the same as, I can think of this as a mixed number, and I can say 4 times 23 is 92, plus 25 is 117, so this is 117 over 4. When I take the square root of it, remember I have plus or minus, and this is root 117, and this is root 4. The left side is now x minus 5 over 2. Well, since 1 plus 1 plus 7 is 9, we know that 9 is a factor of this. So this is really the square root of 9 times the square root of something, which happens to be 13. So on the top, I have 3 root 13. And on the bottom, the square root of 4 is 2. X minus 5 over 2. So now, I add 5 over 2. I add 5 over 2, and since this is all the same denominator, we call this 5 plus or minus 3 times the square root of 13 divided by 2. Only one of your homework problems is that hard. So this is as much of completing the square as we're going to do today.